Okay. The months rolled in, and Bruno had grown many times the size he was when he came. So, like this, many months passed, and gradually Bruno became bigger and bigger in size. He had equaled the Alsatians in height and had even outgrown them. Now he is when he was small, but now earlier he was small in size, but now he is even become bigger than the Alsatians in height. But was just as sweet, just as mischievous, just as good. Though it has grown in size, it has not changed in behavior. He was similar as he was in the early days, now also the same way. And he was very fond of all of us all. Above all, he loved my wife and she loved him too. She had changed the name from Bruno to Baba, a Hindustani word signifying small boy. So gradually Bruno got changed into Baba. Okay, a name normally Baba means lovingly we call a small boy as Baba, and he could do a few tricks too. At the command Baba wrestle or Baba box, he vigorously tackled anyone who came forward for a rough and tumble. So whenever he used to give a command that Baba wrestle or Baba box, whoever comes near you, he will just control just like a wrestler does in that way. And then give him a stick and say Baba hold gun, and he pointed the stick at him. Ask him, Baba, where's baby? And he immediately produced and cradled affectionately a stump of wood which he had carefully concealed in his straw bed. So, in his bed, which is made of straw. Why straw? In order to keep warm. So, from there, he used to keep hidden a stump of wood, a small piece of wood that he used to keep hidden over there. So, that he used to bring and then he used to cradle. Just like we cradle the babies, he used to cradle the stump of wood. But because of the tenant's children, poor Bruno or Baba had to be kept chained most of the time. But as now the Bruno has grown up, so there were small children outside the house, tenant's children. As a result, Bruno had to be kept in chains. Then my son and I advised my wife, and friends advised her too, to give Baba to the zoo at Mysore. He was getting too big to keep at home. After some weeks of such advice, she at last consented. Hastily, before she could change her mind, a letter was written to the curator of the zoo. Did he want a tame bear for his collection? He replied, yes. The zoo sent a cage from Mysore in a lorry, a distance of 87 miles, and Baba was left out. So, because Baba was now already has grown up, so everybody advised, even the narrator and his son also advised his wife to give away Baba in a zoo. But she was not agreeing. Ultimately, she agreed to it, and immediately steps were taken so that before she could change her mind, it could be done. So, curator means a person who looks after the zoo. I hope you have visited a zoo. So, the curator was, the narrator wrote a letter to the curator asking if he would need a tame bear for his zoo. Reply came yes, and along with came a cage in a lorry from 87 miles far. We all missed him greatly, but in a sense we were relieved. My wife was inconsolable. She wept and fretted. For the first few days she would not eat a thing. Then she wrote a number of letters to the curator. How was Baba? Back came replies, well, but fretting he refused food too. So when Baba was sent to the zoo, all were relieved, relaxed that at last a good thing has been done. But the narrator's wife, she was feeling very bad. She was too upset. She was such upset that it was impossible to console her. She was not. forgetting about the bear. And she used to cry. She used to stop eating. She could not eat, thinking of Bruno. And then she wrote several letters to the curator. From there, the curator answered that Bruno is well, but Bruno is also not eating properly. So what is there? After that, friends visiting Mysore were begged to make a point of going to the zoo and seeing how Baba was getting along. They reported that he was well but looked very thin and sad. So after that, whoever from their area, whoever went to Mysore, they were said in those days we did not have the facility of video calling, right, or mobile phones. So those facilities were not there. So friends who visited Mysore or went to Mysore for some reason, they were asked to please once you pay a visit to the zoo and see how Baba was. They would go and some would go and give the news that he was good, but he looked very thin and sad. All the keepers at the zoo said he was fretting. For 3 months, I managed to restrain my wife from visiting Mysore. Then she said one day, I must see Baba. Either you take me by car or I will go myself by bus or train. So I took her by car. So for 3 months, somehow, the narrator managed to keep his wife at home, away from Bruno. But then, when 3 months got over, it was impossible. No more it was possible to keep her at home. She said that either you take me to Bruno, or if you don't take me by car, don't worry, I will go myself by bus or train. So the narrator had no other options. What he would do, he took her by car. Friends had conjectured that the bear would not recognize her. I had thought so too, but while she was yet some yards from his cage, Baba saw her and recognized her. He howled with happiness. She ran up to him, petted him through the bars, and he stood on his head in delight. So everybody thought that maybe it's 3 months over, so Baba will no longer recognize uh, his wife, narrator's wife. But it was not so. When she was some distance away from the cage, from there only Baba recognized, and then Baba was very happy. It stood on its head and in delight, it was jumping, and immediately the narrator's wife ran to the bear, petted him through the bars. For the next 3 hours, she would not leave that cage. She gave him tea, lemonade, cakes, ice cream, and whatnot. Then closing time came and we had to leave. My wife cried bitterly. Baba cried bitterly. Even the hardened curator and the keepers felt depressed. For me, I had reconciled myself to what I knew was going to happen next. So, after that, 3 hours passed. Time came for that day to be the zoo to be closed. But then, when that time came, the narrator's wife started crying bitterly. And along with her, even the bear started crying very badly. Not only that, looking at the curator and the keepers of the zoo, normally curators and keepers at the zoo, they are strong hearted. Even those people were also feeling very sad. And the narrator, our narrator, he understood what is going to happen next. So he made up his mind that okay, I know what is happening next and I have to be prepared for that. So what is happening next? Let's see. Oh, please, sir, she asked the curator, may I have my Baba back? Hesitantly he answered, Madam, he belongs to the zoo and is government property now. I cannot give away government property, but if my boss, the superintendent at Bangalore, agrees, certainly you may have it back. Now, she asked the curator that she wanted Baba back, but the curator replied that it is now the government property. So, it's not possible to. hand him back. Somehow, still he said that okay, if his boss, that is the superintendent of the zoo, if he agrees, then he can give back. Baba. There followed the return journey to Bangalore and a visit to the superintendent's bungalow. The tearful pleading, Baba and I are both pleading for each other. Will you please give him back to me? He was a kind hearted man and consented. So they came to Bangalore and they went to the superintendent's house. And there she pleaded before him that they both were worried for each other and she wants Baba back. Though the superintendent, as he should not have given, but he was a good fellow. He was a good-hearted, kind-hearted fellow. So he agreed and he gave him back. He gave him back the. Uh, he ordered to give him back the bear. Not only that, but he wrote to the curator telling him to lend us a cage for transporting the bear to Bangalore. So not only he had consented, agreed to, but he also asked the curator, wrote a letter where he asked the curator that okay, hand them a cage also so that they can carry it to Bangalore. Back we went to Mysore again, armed with the superintendent's letter. Baba was driven into a small cage and posted on top of the car. The cage was tied securely, and a slow and careful return journey to Bangalore was undertaken. So then they went to Mysore. From there, they went to Mysore along with armed with superintendent's letter. It means along with the superintendent's letter, which granted them the right. And then they brought back Bruno, tied it on the top of the cart, and then they brought back Bruno to Bangalore. Once home, a squad of police were engaged for special work in our compound. An island was made for Baba. An island was made. Island means where the four sides are not attached with any other land. So that was made for Baba. And then it was 20 feet long and 15 feet wide. So that island was 20 feet long and 15 feet wide and was surrounded by a dry pit. Dry pit. Pit means gadda, right? Or moat, 6 feet wide and 7 feet deep. So it was 6 feet wide and 7 feet deep. A wooden box that once housed fowls was brought and put on the island for Baba to sleep in at night. Straw was placed inside to keep him warm and his baby, the grand stump, along with his gun, a piece of bamboo, both of which have been sentimentally preserved since he had been sent away to the zoo, were put back for him to play with. So, all those things, his gun and his baby, that wooden stump, all were kept at home. So, those were also put in that box. In a few days, the police posted the cage onto the island and Baba was released. He was delighted, standing on his hind legs. He pointed his gun and cradled his baby. My wife spent hours sitting on a chair there while he sat on her lap. He was 15 months old and pretty heavy too. So now the bear is 15 months old and in 15 months it has become much heavier. The way my wife reached the island and leaves it is interesting. I have tied a rope to the overhanging branch of a mango tree with a loop at its end. Putting one foot in the loop, she kicks off with the other to bridge the 6 foot gap that constitutes the width of the surrounding pit. The return journey is made the same way, but who can say now that a sloth bear has no sense of affection, no memory, and no individual characteristics? So, but the narrator says that see, the way his wife goes into that island and comes back. That is also very interesting. That the way she goes and comes. Now, the thing is that normally we say that sloth bear they don't have much intelligence, much knowledge. But here, what you see that this sloth bear has much sense of affection. It has a good memory. It doesn't forget, and also it has its own individual characteristics. So here ends our story written by Kenneth Anderson. But from this story, what we come to know is that two aspects of humanity we are finding. One in human aspect, another human aspect. In humanity, we find how the wild pigs were chased and killed, how the mother bear was killed, and the human aspect, how the baby bear was taken up and he was looked after by a family who believed that baby bear to be one of their family members. It showed the human characteristics, right? Now, in this story urges you to be little human towards these uh, animals. Towards animals, normally people have rude attitude. Like you will find in your locality, you are very angry at dogs in your locality when they shout, isn't it? You get very angry. Have you ever thought those dogs are somewhere guarding your house? I don't think so. If some thieves come, those are the dogs which awakes you that yes, the thief has come. We get angry with crows. Ah, crows shout so badly, isn't it? So bad sound. It is disgusting. Have you ever thought it is a scavenger? It cleans the society, right? The waste that you throw, all those wastes, it severs. So somewhere it is cleaning the environment. We don't think so. Rather, we get disgusted at them, right? So that's the thing. The place where the animals live, where do they live? In the forest, right? And we live in cities and towns, villages too. Which is more cleaner, better? Forest is more cleaner, isn't it? Not our cities, not our town. And if we talk about our Kishanganj town, you know it better than me, isn't it? Even one day morning, it was 4 o'clock in the morning. I was passing near the Dharamganj railway gate. From there I was passing. And then I saw after crossing the Dharamganj gate, you will find after few yards, the road divides. So there you will find in the middle of the road, people keep put all the desert. I noticed one person. He brought out the rubbish from his home, and then he looked here and there. He found nobody. Only I was there passing. I was coming from far. I was noticing him. What he did, he put all the garbages in front of another house, and then he entered the house. So nice, isn't it? So that's we. And see the animals. They are different. They don't forget you. We forget people. We forget our friends. We forget those who help us. But this bear, they don't forget. They don't forget. They keep not only this bear, any animal. If you keep pet to any animal, you will see they are more faithful towards you than the humans. Okay, so the urging is here: be human towards the animals. They need your help. Okay, thank you very much.